my show. Always a pleasure to be here, and always a pleasure to have you out there in the audience. Well, as you know, this is in Fall River election year. What does that mean? Well, sometimes it means a lot, and sometimes it doesn't seem to be. Doesn't seem to mean that much. This year, you have the election for the Charter Commission members and the school committee, city council, and the mayor's race. Now, as of late, it seems to be sort of quiet. We're at the end of August, and come September, you're going to have the preliminary. That's going to come along pretty quickly. So I don't know what people out there are thinking in regards to candidates. There are a lot of candidates for city council, and well, there's a number of enough candidates for the Charter Commission. Now, the Charter Commission members, if it goes forward, and they actually meet, they're going to look at the Fall River Charter, which is quite old, and at least bring it up to date, and then again, you know, maybe make some changes that are in general in a sense. School committee, got a couple of candidates, or I should say, you got a number of candidates. There might be some changes on the school committee, and it looks like the city council, there will be changes because some have left. CJ Ferry is running for the mayor's job, and you have who are the other? Matter of fact, I should introduce my guest.
I don't need any introduction.
Like no one knows who you are.
I know, really.
CJ Ferry.
That's right. That's right. Always a pleasure to be here, Richard. And you know, in the mayoral race, you have C. Samuel Sutter, our current mayor, Jaisla Correa, current sitting city councilor. You have Richard Renzi. I believe this is his third time at a bite for the apple of mayor. And then we have Robert Alexander and Jordan James Sylvia. And we have to look at this very seriously because the top two contenders right now are C. Samuel Sutter and Jaisla Correa. And we need to really look at what they're doing. See, these people have a record. The other three don't. So on the other three, you have to listen to what they have to offer and what they're saying. And if you think they're going to be able to do that, then you vote for them. But in the sense of Mayor Sutter and City Councilor Jaisla Correa, you have to look at what they've done.
Now, let me ask you this. Your organization, Spindle City Media?
Oh, South Coast Media.
South Coast Media. You're going to have a debate.
Yes, we are. South Coast Media with Spindle City Straight Talk, which is another program here on FRC TV on 95 Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 11 a.m. We are sponsoring, again, the People's Debate. The People's Debate will be on September 16th, 6 p.m. at the Cusp Middle School. The questions will come from the people. That's you, the viewer. The way you do that is you send your questions to debate@scSTonline.com.
What about questions right there at the debate?
Well,
now, when you say debate, who hasn't been invited?
all of them have been invited.
School committee? City
No, all the mayoral candidates. We're running the mayoral debates. The city council is having
Do you have any responses?
a forum.
Any responses?
So far, the only people who have not responded to the invitation has been C. Samuel Sutter and Jordan James Sylvia.
So Mr. Correa will be there.
Mr. Correa has said yes, Mr. Renzi has said yes, and Mr. Alexander says yes.
And there'll be no questions from the audience.
We can't. It's logistically, it's not possible. So what we've done instead is we've had people submit their questions in advance.
Online?
They can submit them online, and they will be reviewed by the editorial board.
They can't write a question in the audience and say, I'd like to.
It doesn't have a chance to be reviewed by the editorial board. The questions will not be edited, but the problem that you have when you open up the floor like a town meeting is that questions get directed to specific candidates, and then the others really can't address them appropriately. Also, attack questions can come from the floor. We don't want any attack questions. We want the debate to be fair. We want the questions to come directly from the people, and we want them to be issue-oriented. Not that, I called the mayor and he got my street fixed, and how come he didn't fix my street, and, things like that. We want it to be very fair. And we want the questions to come from you, the people. Now, unlike the recall election where we had this debate, we had an influx of questions from the people, tons of them. And
From the people in the audience? or-
from people that watched the show and took us up on sending the questions in. And on this one, it's a trickle. It's a very slow trickle.
Now, will these questions be from anonymous people? Or do they need to attach their name so you can say,
Well, when
so-and-so is asking this question?
right, if they submit them and they are not anonymous, because there are ways to submit things anonymously, their name will be attached to it. It doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to say their name when the question's asked. If they want us to, they can put that in the question. They say, this is the question I want, and I want to be identified as the
How
person
long is this
asking.
debate going to go on?
2 hours.
2 hours, that's a long debate.
Yes,
And it's only for the mayoral candidates.
it's only for
So,
the mayoral
In
candidates.
other words, each candidate is going to get quite a bit of time.
Yes, they will.
Especially if a few do not show up.
Correct.
So, what is the format, basically? A question is asked, candidate number one. How long does he have to answer the question?
The questions will be asked of the candidates. Well, first off, the candidates will get 2 minutes for an opening statement apiece. Then the first questions will be asked. The barrage of questions will come out, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question, and
Each candidate gets the same question?
the one question that will be asked to the primary candidate. They get the first question. Each successive candidate can either answer the question or rebut it. That will be their choice.
So when you say rebut, so
In other words-
candidate number one gets a question, answers it, and candidate number two can rebut what the candidate number one said.
Correct. So if candidate A says this, and this is what we planned, this is how we're going to do this,
they
and
get
this is
two-
where it's
2
going,
minutes for rebuttal?
and then the next candidate comes up
2
and he's,
minutes for rebuttal?
right, they'll have either 2 minutes to answer the question on their own, or they can
And
use the
then
2 minutes to
the
rebut it.
second question will go to the second
Second
candidate?
person, correct.
All right.
The starting candidate will open and close. So the starting candidate will have the opening statement, and the starting candidate will also have the final statement. Okay? They will be given 2 minutes at each end. They'll have a 2-minute opening and a 2-minute closing.
So you don't have to go for 2 hours if you don't want to, is that correct?
The debate will be aired live on FRC Media, or FRC TV, Channel 95, and FRG TV, Channel 18. It will also be available online through both channels' internet connections. And for the first time, we are currently in the process, and we're hoping that we can accomplish it, of broadcasting this event in also Portuguese and Spanish. You're looking at me like I'm talking with 3 heads.
Well, I mean, a lot of other ethnic groups in the city of Fall River besides.
Right, but the
Portuguese and
predominant
All
ethnic
right.
group in Fall River is Portuguese
Yeah.
and Spanish. And the Spanish population is growing very rapidly.
Yeah, well, okay, I don't want to get into that.
I seem to got you dumbfounded.
I mean, you know, we do speak English in this country.
It's going to be broadcast in English as well.
People,
but-
but then let me ask you, who's going to be the moderator?
Right now, I have 2 requests out for moderators. The MC moderator that I've approached so far is Mark Curtis, formerly of Channel 6. And I've also approached a very well-known face here in Fall River, Jim Phillips.
Okay,
And I'm
now,
waiting for their responses, which they should be in the
Alright,
next
so-
day or so.
Either one of them will be the moderator. Do you have like a panel?
We are currently putting together a panel from each member of the community, and we're debating right now whether to open up the panel to members of the local media. We've been knocking the idea around, and we have no shortage of people who want to be on the panel.
So
Believe me.
a panelist will just say his question for candidate number 2.
Correct.
Read the question.
They read the questions. Now, the other thing about the panelists is, if we don't receive enough questions, which is a possibility, those panelists are going to prep questions against, for these candidates.
How many questions do you expect to ask during the course of
Well,
the
each
debate?
question would be 10 minutes total, because there's 5 candidates. So at 2 minutes per candidate, that's
If
10.
5 show up.
If all 5 show up, that would be 10
If you only
minutes.
have 3,
Then there's more time.
you're gonna need
So,
more questions.
But basing it on that, you're looking at 6 questions an hour, which would give you 12 questions for the entire show. Well, I shouldn't say that. I should say 10 questions, and then you have the minutes on each side for opening and closing.
Yeah. All right, so actually, there aren't gonna be too many questions.
No.
Not many questions.
No,
12
but the questions we want have to be hard-hitting questions. We have issues in Fall River, like economic development.
Okay, what's a hard-hitting question? Give me an example of a question, if you can, in regards to.
Well, if it was me,
An economic question.
if it was me, a good question would be, for 30-plus years, Fall River has failed dramatically in attracting businesses and retaining jobs. What is your plan to attract new business and jobs to Fall River? That can be accomplished, okay? Because we have a system here in Fall River which has no accountability, okay? The current system says you must produce 75 jobs a year. And as long as you produce 75, you don't have to keep them. As long as you produce them,
Who says that?
you get paid. That's the contract the city has with our economic development office.
75 jobs a year, that's a trickle.
Exactly. Now, and
I
then
mean,
if they lose,
yeah.
if they lose 5,000 jobs, like what, the number of jobs they lost with Quaker, which was, I don't even know how many, 1,300, 1,500, 2,000,
It could
3,000?
take a century to get.
They don't, it doesn't get
75.
held against them. And their argument is, well, you can't hold that against them because we don't have any control over the market. Okay? But we're willing to steal from the Commonwealth land and property to put a whim in here known as Amazon. And with all the new stories coming out, I got another batch of stories today from Amazon employees and copies of Amazon complaints that show how this company treats the communities they're located in and their employees. And you have to say, this is a promise of maybe 500 jobs, but Amazon will probably produce 500 jobs for a seasonal employee.
No,
So we have to look at that when people are asking questions. We don't want to focus on any one particular candidate, but you want the issues. For instance, Steve Long just came out and said, we need to start demolishing buildings that are derelict. He said that on the radio. So, if you're elected mayor, what are you going to do about all the tax delinquent properties and all the derelict properties in the city? That's a serious question.
Okay, let's move along to one other, there's another issue that it's back in discussion. People have talked about this for years and years, and that's this so-called having a tourist director in Fall River. We had a tourist director at one time. The person was paid $50,000 a year. I don't know what was accomplished. At that time, there were the buses coming into the city. There were people coming in from other areas because of the outlets that the city had that were pretty attractive, very low prices. And a lot of things were still being manufactured in the city of Fall River that could be sold at these outlets. Now that's all gone. And a person called the radio station and said he thought a tourist director was not a good idea because there's nothing for tourists to see except the battleship and the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast. What do you make of that assessment?
We firmly believe, on our editorial board, and I firmly believe, and I speak for myself only here, that a tourist director would be an ultimate waste of taxpayer dollars. I have a plan, and I'm not running for office, but people say, well, then why do you have a plan? Because everyone says you complain, but you don't have any solutions. Well, the problem is we do present the solutions, but they don't listen to us.
Okay, what's your...
My idea is to terminate the contracts with the Fall River Office of Economic Development, terminate the contracts with the jobs for Fall River, turn around and move those positions into the CDA.
You say the contract with the Fall River Office of Economic Development. How long is that contract? Is that a one-year contract?
I
In other words,
believe...
If it expires, that's the end.
But it never does seem to come to an
Well,
end.
they renew it.
They always renew it. No matter who applies, they always renew it.
They seem to go out to bid
Right.
for the services for the redevelopment board, and they don't get anyone, the chosen group is the so-called Fall River Office of Economic Development. But my understanding, and I could be wrong, that it's only a one-year contract. So what you're saying, when that contract expires, what happens? Go ahead.
The city automatically renews it. They don't even question it.
What do you think should be?
What I think should happen is that we either, at the next renewal of the contract, or we terminate the contract, and we transfer those positions, not the people in those positions, because in my opinion, and again, this is my opinion, the people that currently hold those positions are not performing in the best interest of the city. I believe that those positions should be moved over to the CDA, the Community Development Agency. That way there's accountability. You could get, with that, a development director, a marketing manager and business manager, okay? And you can get 2 clerks and still save money.
And what about a so-called tourist director?
That would be, tourist is under marketing. You
Well,
have to learn.
we have the Chamber of Commerce,
They don't do anything for anyone but the chamber. And that's something people don't understand.
just for their members.
That's for their members. They are a,
But they're business oriented, and aren't they, mandated with encouraging businesses to expand and other businesses to come in? And why I say this is, it seems like we have dueling swords here.
well, first off, the Chamber of Commerce is a nonprofit organization. For years, they would endorse candidates. It wasn't until Rob Mellion came on board that the endorsement of candidates ceased.
Well,
Because that would place into.
Getting back to bringing in business.
But this is where I'm going with this.
Okay.
Now, once that stopped, the chamber actually was able to act a little more independently from the city.
Nonprofits are not supposed to endorse.
Exactly. And that's what they were doing for a number of years. But it did stop. And so far, the chamber does nothing to attract business. The chamber does nothing to help businesses expand.
Well, they have a business center down there in the sense that if you want to start up a business,
They send you to the SBA.
well,
They send you to the SBA.
But-
The SBA has an office in the Chamber of Commerce building. And if you're looking to start a new business and start up, they send you downstairs to the federal government who does the work. Their job is to get members
why
and to represent the interests of the members. They're a glorified lobbying group.
For
When
them-
it comes to turn around and set the tax rates at Fall River, Rob Mellion is right there speaking against an increase in taxes for businesses.
So you have the chamber, CJ, and then you have the Fall River Office of Economic Development. Are they at counter purposes, or are they of different purposes?
They're of different purposes altogether.
Are,
The Chamber of Commerce, as I said, is more of a lobbying organization
for their members,
for their members.
or for its members. And the Fall River Office of Economic Development, you feel, is not really doing much of anything?
No, they represent themselves. They don't bring in businesses that are sustainable,
Well,
that are
they're
long-lasting.
taking credit, it seems, for Amazon coming to town.
Right.
Is that a correct?
Amazon put out the request for proposals. They put out an RFP through the Commonwealth, and a number of cities and towns answered that request. But what's very interesting is that Avon or Randolph responded to that request, and they've already got a center open. They responded, they were approved, their doors opened. Boom. I don't understand what the problem is. If Amazon was truly going to come here, why all the running around? Why all the shenanigans? Could it be for the fact that there's a question of the legality?
In which sense?
Because the biopark where Amazon would go is a biopark. It was created under Mass General Law 23I.
Yeah, for certain purposes.
Okay, and those purposes are restricted.
Yeah.
The Fall River Redevelopment Authority has in their own permitted uses agreement that they've published that you cannot use retail. And they're saying that Amazon's not retail, it is a warehouse. Wrong. Amazon is retail according to the federal government. They classify them as retail, mail order, internet. That is a retail establishment.
And how has the city got Beyond that?
Because all of a sudden they said, oh no, this is for the benefit of Fall River. A $35 million investment into this biopark, this life sciences park, by the Commonwealth, to put in roads, to put in streets, and then the city steals it to make it into an industrial park. The mayor is out there saying that he has biotech industries wanting to come to Fall River, wanting to go to this biopark. Then why would you destroy it? Why would you destroy it and take a major portion of that biopark and convert it into an industrial park?
Okay, now we got, of course, this is election year, all these people out there, candidates vying to be elected. And you attended a seminar not too long ago, put on by OCPF, and that's the Office of Campaign and Finance, Political Finance. You had a little synopsis of what you learned there, or what you found out there?
Well, yeah, because there's been a change in the OCPF regulations, which is governed by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 55. And for instance, the maximum contribution used to be $500. It's now $1,000. So any individual can give to any candidate $1,000. Reporting now for city council candidates and for mayoral candidates is bi-monthly. Twice a month they have to do their reporting. And OCPF is recommending that that reporting be done within 3 days of receiving the money.
Now that's quite a big change, isn't it? In the
A
sense,
huge change, huge change.
That's you know, it's in a few days, in a couple of days, and then you got to get the report back out.
Right.
Prior to that, there was the finance reporting statement. You filled it in. People, actually, a lot of them never got it in on time.
Right.
They finally got these papers in, but there was enough time to do all this work.
Right. Now it must be done the night you have a fundraiser. If you have a fundraising event, you know, the next day your treasurer and your bookkeeping people have to get together and put all that information into the computer.
What do you think this is all about? What do you think?
This is to stop the tomfoolery that's gone on for years throughout the state.
In which way?
Okay? Money was spent haphazardly. Nobody knew where it was actually being spent. There were more in-kind contributions being made in an effort to get around things. There was ways to pay back contractors and political contributors by having somebody pay for something, and they didn't have to put where that came from. You know, printing was paid for by John Smith, $500. Okay, but nobody knew who the printer was. Now you have to not only list who paid for it, but you also have to list who did it. So it creates more transparency in the political campaign
Gives it
process.
more integrity?
A little bit more integrity,
You know,
yes.
Have your brother-in-law do all the printing?
Exactly.
You know, you're bringing in $25,000, but all of a sudden you find out this guy's brother-in-law printed $20,000 worth of pamphlets,
Right.
et cetera.
And the thing is that you have to be very specific now. Before we used to say food.
So,
And
food?
Yeah, just say food. And they would say, okay, fine, it was food. Now you have to say food for what? And where you purchased the food. And how much food was purchased where. And you had to have the receipts for all of that.
What
And
about the,
it makes it difficult now.
the so-called candidates, night at a local restaurant or bar, or a night to meet a certain candidate?
As long as the restaurant, bar, or venue is doing the same thing for every other candidate at the same cost, it's fine. So there is a restaurant downtown Fall River that has opened its doors to any political candidate, and they don't charge them a facilities fee, because the people come in and they buy drinks, they buy food, they do that.
And the restaurant provides hors d'oeuvres?
The restaurant doesn't provide anything. They
Yep.
just provide the venue. Everyone else buys what they're there for.
Okay, and the candidate makes
And that's
a-
perfectly legal.
Makes a speech. Says,
Right, and that's perfectly legal, because he's doing the same thing for every other candidate.
They can-
Now, if I go to McGovern's and they say, well, you know, CJ, you do a lot of business with us, you bring us a lot of weddings, you know, this event usually costs $1,200, we're gonna let you have it for $5. Because, you know, one hand washes the other.
You're a nice guy.
Right, you're a nice guy, we're gonna do that. It's illegal. It's illegal. Unless they're doing that for every other candidate, it's illegal.
What about radio shows, radio stations?
Ah, that's a lovely thing because I've just done this because a local radio station has 2 mayoral candidates on, dueling it back and forth on different days. And I filed a complaint with the FCC in Washington, and I sent a copy of that complaint to the radio station because the manager of that radio station sent back a voicemail message to one of the candidates demanding equal time that the shows are exempt.
On what basis?
Because they're news shows. Well, that exemption would apply except for the clarification in the law. And the law specifically states that as long as they're on that show talking specifically about their duties as an elected official. So if somebody comes on who is an elected official and they're talking about the fact that they just approved a TIF and they're against this and they're against that, that's fine. But when they go, and I'm against what the current mayor is doing because of A, B, C, and D, and my plan is to do A, B, C, and D, and this is how I'm going to do it differently, that's a campaign speech. Even though it's in a news program,
Political.
that's political.
Political
And therefore,
commercial.
it has to be done for every single candidate, whether it be mayoral, city council, school committee, or charter commissioner.
And has that been done?
No.
And what did the other candidates think about that? I mean, they're getting,
They're getting a shaft.
Well, you're exactly right. As you're explaining it, the candidates that are allowed to do it are getting huge political time at no expense.
Right.
We know how much that costs.
And that is a violation of the law. And what's happening is
Now,
that
that violation, let's get back to OCPF, can that be brought to OCPF?
it could be constituted as an illegal campaign contribution because the radio station is not providing the equal time to the other candidates.
So it's like the restaurant.
Right.
In other words, I'm going to let you have it, CJ, for 600, but all the other candidates are going to pay
Exactly.
12.
Exactly.
So that's the analogy?
Yes. And because of that, there does present the question of, are these people receiving favored treatment? And then we have to look at the fact that is the broadcaster influencing the public using its government-issued license to affect a local election?
Well, that's a good question. And is it?
I think they are. And I personally, again, I'm just an individual, I think that that's a problem.
Well, you bring that complaint to the FCC?
I already did.
I didn't mean it that way, but you don't.
Yeah, I don't waste time. I give the station the opportunity, I give every individual the opportunity to correct their errors.
So that's-
And if they don't, then you're telling me file the complaint. So I filed the complaint. And I cited the law, chapter and verse,
And have you
all
had
the way
a
down the line.
response? Have you-
I called the FCC, they said they have received the complaint and they've discussed it with the station. I'm waiting to see what else is going to happen. But I said very specifically that it's a regular recurring process and that if they are not going to be sanctioned, that they need to look at the possibility of serious fines, sanctions, and possibly revocation of their license.
Well, CJ, it's always a pleasure to have you on my program. You're very interesting and you give us a lot of information. I hope you learned something about some of the issues in the city. I surely did. And I want to make one announcement. That's on October 25th. That's at the Pulaski Monument here in Fall River. 11 o'clock, there's going to be a ceremony in honor of the general. Public is welcome to attend. I know there will be a lot of officials there and people running for office. So, well, we'll probably see you there. CJ, you're
Hey, and your viewers need to keep asking questions and remember, get out and vote.
Okay, there you go. Sound advice. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Have a